Velappity is a risk assessment, inspection and compliance software designed to reduce time spent reporting findings to your clients, creating a standardization and consistency for that reporting with a high degree of flexibility over the assets you manage and the Word documents you produce. If we look at the application, what we have here is we have the web application, which is the back end of the Velappity system. It has a nested view which gives client information, site information and job information. So if you look at clients, you select a client, you can see all the jobs allocated to that particular client, or you can go to the nested view and look at the sites itself. Here are all the sites associated with that client, and at that site level you can then go on to see all jobs completed by that particular client site. If I then go to the jobs list page, the jobs list page creates an overview of all the jobs that have been allocated or as yet to be allocated, all the jobs that have been created. Here we have the jobs list page. This is an overview of all jobs that are created, allocated and completed within the Velappity application. If I go through these columns from left to right, you have a reference number which is automatically created and allocated to each task. The job is the details of the task that's going to be completed while on site. You have the client name, you have the site name and address, you've got the scheduled date and time, you've got the details of the operative who is going to be carrying out the task and the status of each job. The final column shows the date and time the job was actually completed. Each heading on this page allows you to order the information, to group effectively, but you also have the ability to fully data mine and search the information that's on this page. So if I wanted to see all jobs allocated to publishing, I could then say, well, I want to see all jobs completed. So I then further refine my search to all the jobs completed for publishing technology up until the end of the year. So if I then wanted to refine further, I only wanted to see jobs completed for publishing technology in the month of November. It then gives me the list here. I can then export that list to Excel, and this can be used for external reporting or even a cross-reference to other systems, for example, a finance system. The Velappity application has three ways to create and allocate tasks to a field operative. The first being under the Jobs tab. If you hit Create, it will create a one-off reactive task. I will revisit this later. The second being a job recurrence, which is effectively a pre-planned maintenance schedule which makes up a normal part of any contract that's won. So if you hit Create, you identify the client, you identify the site, and you identify the task that has to be completed while on site. You can give this task a unique identification name, and at this stage you can allocate it to an operative. This is useful if you have one operative that visits the same site every visit, or you can leave it unallocated to be scheduled at a later date. The schedule recurrence pattern can be created down here. So you have a daily, weekly, monthly or annual recurrence pattern that can be created. So if I focus on monthly, you can identify the day of every month you wish to visit that site. If that job recurrence is quarterly or 6 monthly, it can be created here. If you would rather say the job has to be completed on the 4th Friday of every month, this is where you do that. And again, you can make that job quarterly or half yearly. You can allocate notes. These notes are automatically passed down to the handheld of the operative when the job is allocated to that operative. When you set a time period, you can identify how many days in advance this job is created and put on the jobs list page. Once it is the jobs list page, it then can be allocated to the operative. You start a contract start date. and you start a contract end date. You can also set up the recurrence pattern so the job is actually completed after 36 instances. Or if the contract will last indefinitely, you can actually set the PPM never to end. What I'll now do is I'll show you how the application works on the mobile device. First thing I do is I have to create myself a reactive job. So I create the job type I'm going to be completing while on site. I then identify the client and I identify the site I shall be visiting. I allocate this job to an operative. I can then select the date I want to complete this task and the time I should be expected on site. I can then allocate notes which come down to the handheld device to help the operative run on site. I then save this task. It then goes into my jobs list page as job 1078, sitting in an allocated state. When I synchronize my mobile device, that job will then move to an on-device status on the jobs list page. If a job is created via PPM schedule or as a reactive task but remains unallocated, that job can then be allocated one of two ways. If you go back to the Jobs tab and open the jobs list, you will see the top job is sitting at status new. I open that particular job, I identify the operative that should be doing that task, I allocate it and save it. That job then moves to an allocated state, and the next time the operative syncs the device, that job will go through to the device to be completed. You also have a resource planner on the application. This is a diary view of all the operatives you have available to carry out a task. The diary can be viewed in a day, week or month view, and jobs that are unallocated appear here on the left hand side. So to allocate a task from this page, you simply pick up that job and drop it into the diary of the operative that should be carrying out that task. If, for example, an operative is no longer the right person to complete that task and you want someone else to be doing that task, you pick up that job and you drop it into their diary. You'll see these jobs are different colours. That colour identifies what stage the job is at. The job has different colours based on the stage through the completion task it actually is. So unallocated, allocated, right through to a completed stage. So you will have full visibility of every job and the state it is sitting at. Okay, now we've allocated a reactive job. It's been sent out to the device, so if I synchronize the device, this new job will come through onto the system. You will see the new job has dropped into the system here. So I then open this job. When you open the job from top down, you get the date and time the job is scheduled for. You get the job reference number, you get the client site's address, and then you also get notes. So in this particular time I've been instructed to park in Bay 54. Then what you have is you have a series of sections, subsections and questions. This is completely controlled and designed at the back end of the application to use precise specifications. But if I open up the first section, now first question tank number has a red asterisk to the top left hand side, which means that question is mandatory. What I will do is I'll leave that blank at the moment to show you the consequences of not asking a mandatory question. So if I then just start typing in information, you get open text, you've got a drop down box, and you've got radio buttons. You've also got a checkbox. Now air vent is of particular interest because within this section I am answering yes or no. But what's happening at the back end is it's dropping in more text. This is using a feature called multiple verbose, and it's really, really important when you're doing bigger, more complex documents. But I go through and just answer all the information, series of checkboxes and radio buttons. The reason I use checkboxes and radio buttons is essentially, with this complexity of form, it's the quickest and easiest way of the operative to gather quality data. And you've also got recommendations which can be dropped down from the handheld. And if I go back, you will see that disk is orange, which means I have not answered the mandatory questions in that section. So I then open the question again, and I give the tank a name, and then I go back. It's gone to a green tick, which means that is good and can continue with the task. So you've got a series of different questions around the details of the tank. You've got the numeric function here, and again, open text. If you go down and just gather the information as you go, tank length, and you can add comments. Now with open text you can add as much or as little open text as you want. The box on the system simply grows to accommodate the text you're actually using. So and then you can take photographs. So if I take a photograph of the external of my tank, which happens to be a coffee cup, and then you take the internal tank, which happens to be the inside of my coffee cup. Right, those images is okay. You go back and you can complete the final section, which is sign off. So if I then put in the customer's name, John Smith, I then capture a signature using my touchpad. And then of course I need to sign it as well. And that is me completed my task. Earlier I mentioned there was a third way to actually add a task to the application for an operative. So if I were to look at that task, you have the ability here to add a task while you're on site. So you're talking to the client, you think, well, while you're here, can you do a temperature monitor? And you can basically add that task and open it when you're on site. This is useful when you have an aborted visit or you have the opportunity to give a quote for additional work. So you'll see that the job falls into a range of different sections. We've got the cold water storage tank sitting as in process. I mark it as complete. It is now ready to be synced back to the office. So I tap the sync button and then that information goes back. Now the on-site inspection has actually been completed and the data synced back to the office system. You can see the job I completed, 1078, has actually moved to a review stage on the jobs list page. A couple of things that are interesting. You've got the date and time here, the job was actually completed, but you've also got the scheduled date. Now the scheduled date is highlighted red simply to identify the job was completed late. Then open up the task, and from here there's functionality you can complete. So the data that's been captured on the handheld can be edited at this stage. So information can be updated. If required, spelling can be corrected. Any other changes needed can be made here. You can also upload supplementary documents. So for example, if you have taken water samples and you have the results, you can attach them here, make them visible via the client portal, and that unifies both the inspection information and the sampling information so the client can see everything in one place. You can open up the documentation. You will see the job has been created. I can open it as a PDF and I can open it as a Word document. So if I then open it as a Word document, I I then get a fully templated Word document to your exact specifications. You will see all the client information, client and site information comes through. Job references number is automatically allocated. None of these questions were answered in a handheld because the data is actually driven from the back end of the system. You can use actual information, you can use ticks and crosses, and the text you can add is unlimited. Now remember, I focused on the questionnaire vent. I answered yes or no, but that's actually dropped in a sentence of text rather than just a yes or no or a tick. Here is where you can add more information. And you have the photographs and signatures come through. Now if I enable editing, it becomes apparent that this is a standard Word document that can be updated in any way, shape or form externally to the Velappity application if you choose to change any of the formatting. Once I've actually done my quality control, I then click on Visible in the portal, mark it as closed, and show this job has been completed. If I now go back to the jobs list page, you will see that task 01078 has now moved to a completed state. Now the mobile inspection has been done, reviewed and marked as complete, the Velappity application can automate email process so the report is sent directly into the mailbox of your client. Alternatively, your client can access an online client portal which gives tiered visibility at a client and site level, meaning the client can view all the sites they manage, whereas a site manager can see the site they are responsible for. So the job I completed this morning was done for Applebath. If I go into that site, you get to see all the jobs completed for that site over a 12-month period. The job I concluded this morning was 1078, so I select that job and it gives me visibility of the field inspection document I completed, including photographs and signatures. All the information is there. It also gives me visibility of any reports I've added on to that. Again, what you have here is you've got the sample inspection report. At any stage, I can download that as a PDF so the client can export that document and store elsewhere if that's what they want to do.